The next section is very important because it has to do with pre-money valuation. How do you do a pre-money valuation? Well, again, if you're using Shark Cap Table 3 Fin, we got it all set up for you. It's very convenient. The key thing is you don't want to go in there and say, oh, I'm worth $5 million. Really? Then they say, we'll give you half of that or 2/3 off the top. No, you want to argue the components one piece at a time. You don't want to slice it into 5 million pieces, but you want to have about 5 or 10 components so that you can sit there and negotiate. Okay. So we want to establish a reasonable founder pre-money valuation. It's what you think your company's worth before you go get any more money. Investors generally want the biggest piece possible for a given investment. Hey, why not? And founders try to do the opposite. So, the larger the valuation, the smaller the piece allocated to the investors for a set amount of investment. You knew that, but I'm just telling it to you again. This relationship sets up the negotiations which you need to defend using line by line in Section E, which is what we're going to go do here in a moment. It's your rationale for valuation. Now, you can change blue words and red numbers, but that's it. So let's go right up here and scroll up and see what this thing looks like. All right. So, a little later on, you're going to actually see these numbers being put in. I decided to do these early. This will be done at the deal maker, a couple sections down. Now, value of beta test revenues. These are very, very important. If you can get some kind of revenue going, please do it. Okay? And I think you could multiply the value by 5, maybe even 10. Yeah, if you sell, a nickel's worth or whatever, that's not such an important thing. But if you have a larger sample, let's say you were selling something for $50 and you sold 1,000 of them. That's getting to be a significant test. So I like to put in the recent revenues and maybe historical revenues too. You might have this thing might go on for a couple of years before you really get going. And carve those revenues up and multiply them, and there you are. So that's a valuation. What about intellectual property, folks? Well, everybody talks about patents. You have things called applications. You have designs and prototypes. You've got working versions. You got a piece of software. You got to have a widget, a machine tool, whatever. You can have a website. All these things do have some value, especially if you've made them nice and you've got them organized. I'd put some value in. What's the value of an issued patent? Ooh, if it's a seminal patent, it could be worth $5, $10, $20, $30 million. If it's just a little also-ran patent, maybe $1 million, $1.5 million. If it's a pretty good patent, maybe $5 million. You have to have some of this analysis done, which is called freedom to operate. So freedom to operate is like having an army tank in the middle of a forest. Maybe the army tank is 10 feet wide, but the distance between your trees is 5 feet. You have a little clearing. That's where your army tank is. That's like your patent. You're in the middle of the clearing. You can move around, but you can't get through the trees. You can't get to see everybody else because you don't have freedom of movement or freedom of operation. You have to go get some expensive people to tell you just how good your patents are along those lines. All right, so let's go down here to management expertise. Let's move these little guys off to the side. All right. Management expertise. Well, if I had Bill Gates or Larry Ellison on my team, they'd be worth a whole bunch. It's not the salary you pay people, it's what they're worth. How do you gauge that? Well, if a guy's making a couple $100,000 as a serial entrepreneur, has had 2 or 3 exits, he could be worth $3-4 million. If you just got a good CFO and he's been making his $1.25, you can't mark him up much. He's maybe worth $1.25. So again, you've got 5 little components here. A good software engineer, of course, they're earning about $150,000 these days, so he could be worth a lot more than just his salary. Let's go up here and look at the market size. These are starting to get very intangible. How big is your market? Everybody wants $1 billion market. First mover, it's important. very difficult to prove you're first mover in anything because there's usually some competition out there. But there are cases where you have people that have never done the business before, not even close, and they're in there, they're first movers. That could be worth $500,000, maybe $1 million. It depends, of course, if you're first mover and have a lot of recent revenues. Now you've really proven the value of being the first guy in the market, and you've proven it with revenues. Ha-ha, revenues, that's the deal. Oh, what about these other considerations? Well, you could have done a hell of a lot of work on a private placement memorandum. You could have done a stellar job on some kind of a marketing study, something that show the value of your time and your effort. Put it in here. Could it be worth $50,000? Sure it could. What about other intangibles such as politicos or brother-in-laws? I mean, suppose you had a brother-in-law that was the assistant to a major CFO of the kind of company that you wanted to sell to. That could get you in the door, could get some preferential treatment. Yep. Put that in there. Other factors, I just call them connections. You might be the queen bee or the guy that with 10,000 people on LinkedIn, and boy, are you kicking up a storm. That's worth something. Put it in there. So in this particular case, we've got about $1.819,200. That's $1.8 million for you. So that's how you do it. So to review, we've got a number of sections, and these sections each can have a component of value. Add them all up, and guess what you get? Founder pre-money valuation. So that's how you do it, folks. Okay. Actually, I should show you one more little thing here, and I need to move this over because if you don't see it, you might not see it. Right here, you can't enter these. You have to spin them in, and the reason we do that is they're so intangible that we actually have another place where you can spin them up or spin them down. So we'll put some of those in there.